Peace everyone, Unmask here. Welcome back to the colored pencil tutorial. Today we're just going to be doing the dark blue shirt under his jacket. So I won't be doing a whole lot. Yeah, I have one new color. That is this blue color here. This is 933. You can read that. And this is the only new color that I'm adding today. Hey there, Cece, Claire, Barbara, Susan, Dottie, Diane. I'm going to actually start off with black and just preserve my line art. So just some of the seams in the shirt I'm going to put in. Hope everyone's having a good day so far. I know most of you just started your day, so hopefully you're having a good morning. You have to forgive me, I have a cough drop in, so I'm finding it a little bit tricky to talk without spitting on my drawing. I don't have a sore throat or anything, it was just my throat felt a little dry, so just happened to not finish my cough drop yet. By the way, any questions about the mustache? Yesterday we did the mustache, and I know a few of you were a little hesitant and kind of worried as to whether or not you get your mustache looking good. I saw some good progress in the Discord, and I can't remember who exactly it was. I think it might have been you, Cherry, actually, that posted. And you were a little worried about it looking wrong because you had some of the dark colors put in. Those dark shapes, they looked good. You just need to bridge the gap between them with the gray and the black and the brown and stuff. I'm switching to the 933, the new color, by the way. I'm just going to put in the outline. And now I'm just going to start filling this shirt in with this blue, because what I'm going to do, this blue shirt, there's a lot of gray in it. There's a lot of black in it. And what I'm going to do is just start with this flat blue and then add the blue and gray. Mix it a little bit to create the subtle value changes. And then come back with the gray to add the thread texture at the very end. So, relatively simple. So I'll just start with a nice heavy layer of the blue. And by heavy, I don't mean that I'm pushing hard. My left hand, even if I wanted to push hard, I couldn't. It just means that I'm covering the paper completely with the color. That's all I mean. Good morning, Ozzy. By the way, you could pretty much use any color that you want for the shirt. I think blue suits him very well. And this is actually probably the last color that I will add. I don't think I will be adding a new color for the jacket. I'll just be reusing the same colors, and I'll make the jacket match the hat. So one more reminder to anybody that may have missed the live critique session tomorrow, same time. And if you want to submit something, I have a link for the Facebook group in the description. Some really good submissions so far. Hello, Neil. No problem, Susan. Take your time. This blue is super vibrant. I was sort of considering different blues for this shirt here, and ultimately just decided on this one. A splash of color in this relatively dull landscape of color. It'll be okay. Once I mix the gray and the black into it, it won't be as vibrant as well. So I also took that into account when choosing my blue. I already knew that I was going to be mixing gray and black into it. So part of choosing a blue that is objectively more saturated than what his shirt actually is in the reference, that is a perfect example of how experience with your medium affects your color choices. Because I think in many ways, anyone with slightly less experience with how the colored pencils blend together, they may end up choosing a blue that is duller, less saturated than something like this. And then when they mix in the black for like the shadows and the gray for the highlights a little bit, they would end up with a color even less saturated than what they chose. And then you'd end up having to grab a more saturated blue to try to bring some color back into it. Hello, Fed Up. Why am I using my left hand? I was asked to use my left hand because I oftentimes will switch to my left hand every now and again in a project when my right hand gets tired. It doesn't happen too often, but it's also helpful when I have to draw at a certain angle. Since I tape my artwork down and I don't spin it around, I can assure you that when I'm just doing a project by myself and not recording it, I don't tape it down. I spin it around in any direction that I need to feel more control over the line that I'm creating or whatever, you know what I mean? We all spin our artwork to make it easier to like reach certain angles because any line that goes along this path is a lot easier for me to color in with my left hand. And then vice versa, any line that goes like this is easier for my right hand. So it's more often when I'm painting that I switch to my left hand for those reasons because I don't have to spin anything. But yeah, just displaying my proficiency with my left hand, I guess, is why I'm doing this project. It was sort of just on a whim that I suggested that maybe I'll do the next colored pencil project with my offhand. Oh, hey there, Steve. Grandpa Steve in chat. It has been way too long. Yes, indeed, it has been way too long. I can't tell you how happy I am to see you. I hope everything is going well. Yeah, pushing too hard is a very common mistake people make with colored pencils. Hello, RJ. Welcome. Yeah, Steve, I was just saying before you jumped into chat, I don't know if you caught it, but tomorrow I'm going to be doing a live critique. So if you have any of your lovely colored pencil work that you want to submit for a critique, just uh just submit it over there on Facebook or you can email it to me if that's easier. I'm using the black now because this is a cast shadow from his jacket. Yeah, colored pencil portraits can be quite intimidating. I remember when I did my first colored pencil portrait, I was super nervous to fail at doing it. And so what I ended up doing is I did hands and I did a stomach and I did feet, legs. So I did body parts essentially. Um, and that sort of helped me build up the confidence to tackle an entire face. And actually, my wife was the very first person that I ever drew colored pencils. Now that I think about it, it didn't occur to me till now, but yeah. Um, if you if you want to sort of dip your toes into colored pencil portraits, then try a monochromatic one using black, white, and caput mortem on toned tan paper because the caput mortem color in polychromos is probably one of the most magical colors on tan paper because it can with no additional colors, that plus tan paper, you get almost skin tone. Go back for layer 2 here. The other thing that you can do if you want to learn colored pencil portraits is you can buy my colored pencil portrait course. I'll I have like I think it's like a 6 hour course on my website, and I just take you through one portrait. I break down the process that I go through and give you the colors. I use Prismacolors for that portrait. And if you want to do something more up to date as far as a colored pencil portrait, you can always join the art club because I have several portraits both in colored pencil and in pastel pencil if you ever want to try that. And then I just actually put up a video a couple days ago of a time lapse of one of the most recent colored pencil portraits a couple months ago that we did, whatnot. Can't remember exactly when it was, but it wasn't too long ago. And it's one of my favorite portraits. And then, of course, there's this portrait, which I think is quite easy to follow along with as well. Do I think the face is the most difficult part drawing a body with colored pencils? Um, Actually, no. I don't think that. The reason, real quick, I'm going to use black to add some of the subtle shadows throughout the blue here while I answer this question. So the reason I don't think the face is actually the hardest part is because there's so many changing features. There's so many changing planes of the face that the hardest thing to do with colored pencils, in my opinion, is to create large, smooth gradients. And so areas like the upper chest, where it's relatively flat there, maybe some bones and stuff, and the forms are much less pronounced than say like the nose or lips, or say the back. I find the back to be one of the most challenging areas in figure drawing because the muscle structure is so unique and it's asymmetrical in a lot of ways. Um, Everybody's a little asymmetrical, anyways, but one shoulder relaxed, the other shoulder maybe up, or the arm moving or something, that only one side of the muscles will flex, and so you have this asymmetry to it, which can sometimes be difficult to make look natural. And then on top of that, generally backs are quite smooth. Even if you're very muscular, the largest lateral muscles back there tend to be quite smooth, even when flexed. And so those large flat areas are really hard to do with colored pencils because the gradient change is subtle from one side all the way to the next. And within that gradient, you're going to have like 4 or 5 colors. So I don't find the face to be the hardest part because the reason I don't find it to be the hardest part, or I generally consider it to be easier than say like the back or the upper chest even like a shoulder can be very hard, uh, because the gradient shifts happen much closer, like all the colors are much closer to one another. And so you have less space required to be perfect, or can't really quite find the better word to describe it than perfect, but essentially your precision on your colors isn't as important base, ironically, than it would be on a larger, smoother surface like upper chest or back, shoulder, because the gradient transitions are just so much more subtle on those larger areas of the skin. Um, a lot of colored pencil artists fill the tooth of the paper with tiny circular motions instead of straight lines. I almost always do straight lines. Um, I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way. Occasionally, I'll do circular motions, but I find circular motions to be quite fatiguing on your hand, as opposed to um, sort of directional lines where you can use your fingers with directional lines. You can use your wrist with directional lines. You can use your elbow with directional lines, and you can use your shoulder with directional lines. And so by having a combination of all of those, you're going to be a lot less fatigued in any one of those joints. So you can relax your shoulder, you can relax your elbow, your wrist, and your fingers. And directionality is really important, especially in colored pencils, because I used it a lot. And yesterday was a really good example when I was working on the mustache. I was stressing the importance of following applying the pencils in the direction that the hair is going, because that gives you that subtle texture that you gradually build on. Switching colors, by the way. I'm going to be using the gray. This is the 1059. And so the directionality aspect of colored pencils is really useful when creating certain textures. And if you were to want to, say, not have an obvious directional look to your lines, uh, you still don't have to do circles, because circles create their own texture within themselves. So it's not like circles eliminate those lines. Really, to get the least textured look, I would say, has a pressure, the amount of pressure that you put on your pencils has a bigger influence on the amount of texture that shows through, not necessarily the actual motions that you create while filling. Now I'm going to blend these layers out. Start up here, I guess. Yeah, I may end up adding more gray in the next layer. That blue is still very, very vibrant. Well, if Steve, if you wanted to submit a an acrylic painting, that's you're more than welcome to do that. I guess I didn't specify in the about the live critiques. You can submit any medium that you want because even if you submit a watercolor, even though I'm not a watercolor artist, I can still give you feedback on the general universal art things that can improve your work. So if you have an acrylic painting that you'd like me to look at, I'm quite familiar with acrylic paint. Well, I I used acrylic paint for many years. So when it comes to filling in the texture of the paper, Diane, it shouldn't it shouldn't be that it's more about straight versus non-straight lines to get the pencil to fit into the texture. The grain of the paper is not linear. So your pencil direction shouldn't have any added benefit to filling in the tooth of the paper. When, say, especially with the Lennox, since I have quite a bit of experience with the Lennox paper, the one thing that I've noticed about the Lennox, since it is a bit toothier than, say, this paper here that I'm using, which is this Strathmore multimedia paper, wondering, um, is that the grain of the paper a bit deeper on the Lennox, which gives it that toothier feel. And when you get to a point where the paper doesn't, you still get those little pinholes. You sort of just have to have a sharp enough pencil to sort of squeeze inside of those small, small holes. Nice to meet you too, RJ. Yeah, wonderful having you here. If you have any questions for me, there's no limit on the number of questions you can ask. So, by all means, you can ask me anything you want. Gosh, this paper is just soaking up my solvent right now. I can barely get a brush stroke before it dries out. Hey there, Robin. And Charles. Cheryl? Charles. You have to let me know how to pronounce your name. It could be Cheryl, but it could be Charles. Yeah, I'm not 100% how to pronounce. Please let me know. I always try to make every effort that I can to pronounce everybody's. Wondering if you can learn using your left hand as well. One of the a few people might be tired of me telling the story, but when I was in high school, for whatever reason, I had this notion that if I were to ever injure or lose my right hand, I wanted to be able to still do art and still draw. So I spent an entire year, my junior year. Yeah, it was my junior year in high school, drawing with my left hand. Not just drawing with my left hand, but doing everything with my left hand. So taking notes in class, however briefly, taking tests, writing essays. Spent the whole year working with my left hand and using my left hand for art has sort of just been something that I've always done since then. When my right hand gets tired, which doesn't happen a lot when I'm doing colored pencils, but with painting it can get tired. So, mainly with painting, I've used my left hand quite a lot throughout the years. Wow, that is super. So I gotta wait for that to dry, and then I'm just gonna go over it with the gray, black probably, various layers. Oh, if anyone was wondering about that box yesterday that I was telling you about, that ginormous box that the blanket came into, or it came in, uh, I was anticipating my wife coming home and seeing this refrigerator-sized box right in the hallway when you walk in. And so when she walked in, uh, I went over and just stood there waiting for her to react to it because it was a little bit out of her eye shot, just stepping in. But as soon as she saw it, the look on her face just made me laugh because I knew exactly. You know how you get really familiar with your significant other's facial expressions? Well, this is definitely a facial expression that I'm very familiar with. Her surprise confusion face. And so I was just waiting for it. Like for an hour after I finished the live stream, I was just waiting for her to come home and I was just getting excited to for her reaction to the box and then um when she did finally see it and she made the face and I just asked her, "Do you know what came in it?" Because she thought that I bought something that she was going to be like upset about, like I bought some huge thing, like a second TV for absolutely no reason. Okay, it's dry, so I'm going to use the 1059. Um, and I just had her guess. I just had her try to guess what came in the box, and she had absolutely no idea. And I told her that the blanket came in the box. And then I showed her what else was in the box because, like I said, there was oh, okay, con. Is it? Do you pronounce it con then or chan? Con, chan. Yeah. So, anyways, I told her the blanket came in the box, and I showed her how much space it took up, and then I pulled out all of the packaging paper, and all she could really say was that we could live in that box. Like, it is that size. Honestly, my wife and I, we could get in the box and not even be touching. You could easily fit three people in that box and sit beside each other, cross-legged, and not even touch. It's that big of a box. It's almost as tall as a door. A little bit shorter. Maybe like 6 foot. Like one like 190 centimeters. That's how tall the box would be end to end, or how long it is depending on your perspective. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So yeah, that was her reaction. I just had to share that with you while I was waiting for the paper to dry again. All right, now I'm going to switch to the black. And I'm just going to do a light layer over everything with the black. Yeah, I haven't broken down the box yet to to get rid of it. No joke, it's still sitting awkwardly in the hallway. I intended on doing it today though. Although it feels bad to throw out a whole house because that's what it feels like. It's like I'm throwing out like a whole forest of trees that it took to make that one box. Any kids in the building? No. There used to be upstairs, but um it's been a really long time since I've seen kids in my building. And honestly, I don't know every person on every floor. That I mean, I don't even know the I only barely know the people that live right next door. Um but I've seen just about everybody that lives in the building. A majority of the people are probably over the age of 50, like easily. And then there's maybe four people that are about between 30 and 40 or so. I think younger people tend to gravitate towards the city a bit more because I don't see a lot of kids really at all. I know they live somewhere around here. I'm not sure where, but my building seems to be mostly older people that don't have kids or their kids are living out on their own. which is not that common in Poland, actually. Alrighty, time for blending session number 2. Now I don't need as much solvent on my paintbrush this time to be able to get through it all without constantly having to dip my paintbrush in solvent. My goal here is to just get a solid color, or a relatively solid color for the shirt. And then I'm going to use the black and gray to create some of the threading. Yeah, I agree. The box does seem to be a better gift than the blanket I received. I've been talking about the box for 2 days now. I haven't even mentioned what color my blanket is. Well, it was a duvet, so the color was white. Hello, Tishki. Honestly, I don't know if the cardboard house looked pretty decent. I don't think my wife would be too disappointed. What my wife really wants to do is she wants to build she wants to get one of those dome houses. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but essentially what they do is they blow up this really big balloon and they pour concrete on top of it, and then they let the air out of the balloon, and you're just left with this essentially concrete igloo. And she found this company that builds them, and you can, based on the size, like, she just wants to get land, and I was totally down for it. I'd still do it actually, but our tentative plans a couple years ago was to just get some land and put three domes on it. One as a one as our house, one as a guest house, and one for her mom. I don't lie, I kind of overestimated just how saturated. Yeah, there's windows. Yeah, there's windows that you can have put in, windows and doors and stuff. I believe they come after the fact. But the whole thing about them is that, you can build them in like a day. And the shape of them makes them completely resistant to earthquakes, of course. And the shape also helps the shapes and materials also helps with temperature, like heating and cooling. Bristol paper 250 GSM is good for colored pencils. Yeah. I would stay away from printer paper. Do not do not go to printer paper. Um, the quality of paper that you use with colored pencils can have a big influence on how much you like the medium. Still a little damp. It's kind of dry on that side. A little wet right there where I blended a bit excessively. Very spotty for some reason. You guys see how spotty it looks? I don't know why it looks like that. It's awful. I feel like I should grab another color. Grab the black, put in the seams here. I'm just going to ignore the blotchiness and go right into the detail. Now I'm going to use the 1059. Just try to add some threads. This may be completely pointless. I don't even know if you'll be able to see. actually still have the 1088 blue. I'm gonna do a little bit of experimenting and see if I can sort of smooth this out a little bit. This lighter blue. This is the same blue that we used in the eyes and the hat. Yeah, you know what? I like that a lot better. I feel like that smooths it out without going black or without going much lighter with gray. I think it looks worse on camera because I'm zoomed in. So maybe I'll finish this layer here. Zoom out and see if better. Because in person it just looks like a shirt. But when I look at it on camera, it looks really blotchy right here. But in person, it doesn't look like that. I feel like the camera is trying to over contrast, try to pick up as much detail as possible, and it's making the shirt look really weird on camera. I'm just going to zoom out here. This down. I think that is all I will do today. Next week we'll most likely finish this project. I think next week will be like 9th or something like that. So I won't push it. But once I finish both these projects, the pastel and the colored pencil one, I won't be doing any new projects until the second week of January, because of my chess tournament. I'll be gone. So when we do finish these, I'll still do a live stream, still do live streams, but it won't be art club projects. It'll probably just be like hanging out, chatting or something. Yeah, it doesn't look as bad now that I'm zoomed out, right? Like I was zoomed in quite a bit, so you guys were seeing it under a microscope, basically. But anyways, that is gonna do it for today. And like I said, next week we'll get started on the jean jacket, and that will be the final bit of this project. So I hope you're enjoying it so far. And don't forget, I will see you tomorrow, same time, for the live critiques. And if anybody missed it, link is in the description. Join the Facebook group, and you can post your artwork there for me to do a critique tomorrow. Anyways, you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Peace.